What is happening, my dear viewers? Welcome back to another video. The season is right around the corner. I have done all that I can to prepare, including, I am that guy who stencils his racket. Why? Because I always liked how the pros had such clean ball striking to only wear the center of this stencil, and so I wanted to see if I can do the same despite shaking every other swing. Also, because it looks cool. Anyways, I just got back from visiting my sister in Michigan, and I got to enjoy some Michigan culture, aka the ranch and things to dip it in. So I can safely add getting chunkier to the list of excuses. I immediately scheduled 3 back-to-back matches to test my fitness over a faux tournament schedule. Due to not having any official USTA or UTR record, unfortunately for my opponents, but not so much for my ego and confidence going into this season, I was placed in the middle division of 3-0 to 3-2-5 players, despite signing up as a 3-5 player for the top 3-5 and 4-0 division in the self-submitting league. Like most people, I play way worse in a match setting compared to a practice and warm-up session. If it wasn't for these recordings, I would have no way of noticing exactly how and where I falter in my technique. And despite weeks of practice, my internal muscle memory continually breaks out due to the panic and necessity of match play. This is completely separate from the issue of tightening up due to the nerves and having to improvise almost every stroke due to the lack of footwork and follow-through. The two main areas I worked on before this season was my serve toss and the follow-through of my non-dominant hand on my forehand. And I am also still aware of the glaring weakness that is my backhand swing path and finish. There unfortunately aren't enough weeks in the year to address every single deficiency I have, so at a certain point, you just need to take what you got and pressure test in a match setting. That being said, my confidence in my serve immediately shattered when I started off this season and series with 2 back-to-back double faults. Like, come on, can it get any worse than that? And of course, I get immediately broken right after. What a great start. You can already tell with how I'm playing, maybe even a 3-5 rating is pretty generous for me. This being my first competitive match in over 12 years, I am a bit relieved I'm not jumping right into the deep end to lose any confidence in my abilities in the first set by matching up against a 4-0. This is also my first ever league match, and as an introvert, the social nerves will also be present on top of the performance anxiety. I have only played one satellite tournament outside of my high school matches, since my parents never really cared for my tennis, so I don't really have a lot of experience playing outside the school courts. Looking at my first opponent, I was a bit intimidated just based on his record. He has been in this league longer than I have been playing tennis, with over 300 matches across a decade, and even a few season championships under his belt. Seeing that he was an older gentleman did not appease the nerves one bit. These types of matchups against an older fella who's probably been playing longer than I have been alive at times can be a nightmare based on that one aforementioned satellite tournament I played over a decade ago. I lost in the second round in that tournament to one such fella who doesn't or even need to have a lot of pace in their shots when they can place them wherever the hell they want. It does not matter if I have a better looking forehand or a proper second serve if I can't consistently get the ball over the net and in the court. And right away, I was feeling the nerves in this match. But thankfully, as the match progressed, I started to feel my limbs for the first time as the nerves started to sweat out of my body. And I started to go for bigger and bigger cuts on the ball. High school Simon had a tendency of constantly going in for the kill regardless of proper setup and strategy, and lost many points due to terrible shot selection and unforced errors. So going into this season, I am trying my darndest to keep a cool, patient head during a point to look for an opportunity to put it away intelligently. I am definitely not at a level where I can reliably put a short ball away, even if it is a dinky second serve, which is honestly all the more frustrating losing points on unforced errors rather than sick winners. I'd much rather lose a match getting styled on with crazy shots and winners than losing on shanks and errors on shots I should be putting away. This match had a bit of everything. Moments where I felt like the point was well constructed and executed, to some very embarrassing mistakes and unforced errors. I will say, there are some positives to take away from this match. The first thing I noticed is that I'll go for field shots now rather than just swinging through every shot, which is something high school Simon never attempted to do. Which again, I only think is possible in part thanks to the tighter string pattern of the Yonex V-Core Pro 97D. Although, I'm sure if my opponent was younger or more athletic, I would have paid the price for those things. These angles I don't think I could ever hit as clean with my old 16x19 rackets. I really like hitting to that cross-court deuce corner with my forehand today. I wish I could take that level of placement and consistency for the rest of the season. The deuce slice serve out wide proved effective this match as well. Although, due to the number of double faults and broken games, I cannot yet count my serves as a victory. After opening the match with 2 double faults back-to-back, I reverted back to my 2 second serve approach for most of the match. However, in this lower 3-2-5 level, I could get away with that thanks to the placement and kick it has, but it is something I will definitely need to address down the line. I mentioned in the last video that sometimes after an intense rally, I will forget the score and sometimes even forget which side was just served. This is the first of many score-related issues I faced this season, and to my credit, it is almost always in favor of my opponent. I am not a natural cheater, I guess. I never mentioned my volleys leading up to this match, mainly because it's a pretty forgettable part of my game. I like to pretend I'm an aggressive baseliner that follows through with my deep topspin shots by going to the net, which I have a lot of experience doing, and that usually will force an error from my opponent before I can even attempt a volley. However, as the level gets higher, my intimidation stance isn't as effective, and I actually need to put the volley away if it comes back to me, which is a whole nother level of strategy, shot selection, and ball recognition that often separates even 4-0s to 4-5 players. Any boop, my dear viewers, I managed to take this first victory 6-3, 6-1. I was surprised to see a lot of nice winners and shots, but I still had more unforced errors than winners. Looking back at what caused those errors mainly stemmed from a lack of intensity and ball recognition, which usually leads to poor footwork and shot selection when you inevitably position yourself too far away from your normal strike zone. By the way, I kept that point in because that will happen again later this season on the same court in the same spot. Sometimes, when you have too much time to think when a ball is coming towards you, you lose that bit of intensity and you make some really dumb errors. Like, come on, what was that? My backhand continues to have some issues, and with every point lost, it just goes up higher in the list of priorities. Man, is it ugly and terrible. Look at that, I end up slapping the ball a bit. It's so awkward. That will be addressed soon, my dear viewers. Trust me on that. The very next day, I had a match against someone with a very similar story to mine, which I am finding is a pretty common story for those people who grew up playing tennis in SoCal. My next opponent was a few years younger than me and also played in high school and also had an extended break during college only to pick it up again after graduating. He mentioned he went to school in Southern California like me, which, if you know the level of tennis around here, can be pretty damn high. Thankfully, much like myself, his school was a lower division like my own. I will say though, during the warm-up, I started shitting bricks because I saw he had a really nice looking forehand, especially when compared to my previous self-taught opponent. However, this match went by even more smoothly than the last. Other than of course double faulting my very first service points, there weren't as much nice rallies or winners this match as most points were won on unforced errors, which is honestly not as fun to play. At the recreational level, I feel like winning and losing tennis doesn't matter as much as long as good tennis is being played. I'm sure we can all relate to having losses where it doesn't sting as much knowing you played your best tennis. But honestly, there's not much to go off this match other than the same persistent issues of the previous match, which to put simply is inconsistency, which of course stems from a laundry list of technical deficiencies, starting from a basic ground strokes to my terrible volley mechanics and placement. And more embarrassingly to me, my inability to handle a pancake second serve. I genuinely prefer returning a nice kicker with pace over a dink second serve. I still struggle with dealing with balls that have no pace and having to generate my own. A lot of short balls and second serves that should be easy winners are instead some of the most frustrating unforced errors one can make in tennis. And I make them a lot. Still, we managed to take this one 1-0 with my first half bagel. When I woke up the next day, man, I was sore in places I did not know I had muscles in. Namely my left calf and right hip socket. The way I load my hips a la Sampras on my serve really did a number on that hip joint. Unfortunately for this match, I have not perfected my GoPro setup and it overheated during the match, and so it was recorded in patches. I didn't even get the handshake or my aces on camera. But regardless, I got a couple of nice winners, accidental drop shots, double faults on my end of course, as well as some blatant spraying of forehand and backhands. A lot of the points were won on my opponent's unforced errors before we can get a proper rally going, which just makes tennis feel a little eh. Oh well, a win is a win. We take it 2-0, and after submitting that score to the league, they have finally bumped me up to the 3-5-4-0 division I originally signed up for. Take a week off before scheduling our next match, while squeezing in a few wall sessions to address my forehand and namely now my backhand finish. I really gotta stop slapping the ball and have a proper setup and follow through with the backhand. I notice I keep jamming my right elbow in a very awkward position that sticks to my torso, compared to the higher finish of the more technically proficient backhands of Djokovic or Agassi. I am of course using my trusty GoPros and Intuitive Tennis to diagnose and address these issues directly. Not being able to do it in real time with a coach is starting to have its limitations, but it is better than nothing. The whole point of this series was to document these little moments in between the matches to see if my technique and match play can really improve without a coach and just using the tools that are readily available for us everyday rec players. Alright, after some much needed rest, I scheduled my first 3-5 player who happened to be another older gentleman. He mentioned he started as a serve and volley with wooden rackets, so another fellow who's held a racket for longer than I had been alive. He was also my first ever chronic slicer. We all faced him eventually, and the moment I saw his forehand slices during the warm-up, my stomach sank. This is going to be a nightmare to generate my own pace and spin. As I mentioned in my previous video, I play with a fairly extreme Western grip, which makes these low balls extremely hard to properly strike without launching the ball into the stratosphere or directly into the net. I apologize for the angle too, so this one will be a quick one as I still haven't figured out the setup yet and my GoPro continues to die on the field. Don't worry my dear viewers, these are the growing pains. Trust me, it only gets better from here. Despite the difficult style of play, we managed to take it home 2-1 with some well-constructed points. And of course, an ace or two to boot. Although, thanks to this footage, I am seeing that my non-dominant hand still does not pull across during the follow-through when I'm trying to massage the ball for a more controlled angle rather than a full power shot. My lack of overhead practice is also really starting to take notice in these matches with some blatant unforced errors. Alright, my next opponent was another one of those former high school players picking up tennis after college kind of guy. He was my first opponent who actually hit the ball with some real pace, which made this match a fun one. We both had some troubles with our nerves and second serves in the beginning of the match, sprinkle in some lucky shake returns, and I got myself an early break. My overarching game plan going into these matches is just to keep the rallies as long as possible for the first set so I can get my confidence and rhythm back before starting to go for more aggressive plays. But sometimes I'll shake a kick serve so badly that it actually works out in a way I'll never be able to recreate, like that one right there. So far, it's looking like to be a whoever holds serve wins the game kind of set based on how we're both serving today. Finally started to have some decent rallies, so now is the time to start establishing an offensive presence with some inside-in forehands and approach shots. But neither are convincingly executed, so I get bit in the butt for my troubles. This match has been the best tennis I played so far. down a point like that. I will say I am starting to develop some sort of foresight in these rallies. At the level we are playing, I could somewhat predict where they'll be going in for a smash or a winner based on their positioning, and knowing what would be the higher percentage shot if I were in that position, which allows me to start running towards the direction before they even hit the ball. I'm sure that will very quickly bite me in the ass once I start playing some 4-0 players. But then again, look at how jammed my non-dominant hand gets during some serious match play. This is the area that I really need to address. Otherwise, all that technical practice in the wall is for naught if I cannot put it all together when the rally actually matters. Despite the double faults, I decided to go for some real first serves too, but my lack of practice at the net is starting to cost me some real valuable points. I also need to learn how to keep track of the score because I keep giving it to my opponent. Like, that was set point, man. Anywho, we still managed to close out the first set with a nice first serve. For a lot of my matches, I like to focus fire on the backhand side once my rhythm is in, and it's really paying dividends this match. But of course, my lack of backhand still costs me some crucial points, as does my terrible volleys. problem with only attacking the backhand is sometimes they'll send it right back to my backhand, and in a lot of cases, my backhand is a lot weaker than theirs. The priority of fixing my footwork and swing path for the backhand just keeps getting higher. That was a great play for my opponent. Solid serve and a nice touch to my back foot. This is the first time this match I am behind, and a hold is crucial for this stage of the set-to-end match. I am actually known for choking hard in big moments, like leading 5-0 and losing 7 consecutive games kind of choke. My biggest rise to fame in my team came from a moment of such. I was passed up for my JV team my freshman year while seeing a lot of my tennis clinic mates get on the team. I was so upset that it began my training mark, and from that moment I lived on the courts after school. Lived and breathed tennis and began my worship of Roger Federer. I managed to get on the JV team the following year and played #1 singles. #1 on the bench, that is. I was a 4th ranked player, so I only started a handful of times, but still got a lot of good matches in as a sub. Going into my junior year varsity tryouts, I shocked everyone by pulling off a 5-0 lead against one of the #1 doubles players in what was supposed to be a tune-up match for him. Once that got the attention of the team, you know where I'm going with this, I choked and lost 5-7. Unfortunately, we didn't actually get to play best of 3 in our DQ league. Instead, we just got to play a single set against the 1, 2, and 3 starters, so you do end up playing 3 sets if you don't get subbed in. Thankfully, that wasn't the case here. We managed to come back with 3 consecutive games and even saving some nice break points to take the match 6-4, 6-4. Not a bad start to this season if I say so myself. 5 consecutive wins without dropping a set. Honestly, I'm feeling pretty damn good. I did not expect to perform this well right off the bat. I mean, I'm starting to feel a little bit of pressure to keep the streak going, but ultimately to qualify for playoffs, I just need 3 more wins. And I'm feeling pretty damn good. We are just getting started with this season and series. Even in these victories, however, I am seeing a lot of areas I need to improve already. I am trying to schedule 2 to 3 matches a week while squeezing in as much wall sessions in between to focus on said areas. Anyways, before I go off on another long tangent, that is all for this video. It is already pretty long, and I do hope you guys enjoy these longer videos, mainly because I like watching longer content nowadays, just on the background usually. So comment what you like or what you want to see more of, but honestly, the best thing you can do is just to watch another one of my videos right after this one. Here's a little insight of how the algorithm works. Watching any creator's video back to back is the current meta for taking off the algorithm to garner more growth. So help out your local content creator by binge watching their videos. Liking, subbing, commenting, who knows what that does anymore. Anyways, enough rambling. I really hope I see you in the next one, but if not, I'll probably see you never. Toodles.